Imagine you've been out shopping, having a good time, kind of late, and then you get back to your car. You try to start it, and this is what happens. Well, of course, you're aggravated and unhappy, but the real problem is you need to get your car started so that you can get home. So let's talk about some options. Option one, phone a friend. This is always a good option because even if you're going to jumpstart it or attempt to fix it yourself, it's always good to have help. And besides, you're going to need a second car if you are going to jumpstart it. The other option is to call for roadside assistance or call a tow truck. This is always an option. Of course, a roadside assistance plan costs money, and you'll still have to wait for them to get there. Sometimes the response times can be a minute before they can get there, especially if you're in a rural area or a smaller town. Second option is to use a portable jump starter. They're very portable and are basically a battery with a handle and two clamps to attach to the dead battery to jumpstart it. They're available in many brands. Many stores, both online and the big box stores, sell them. The idea is you charge them up at home, then you keep them for whenever you need to use them. The benefit is you don't need a second car. The downside is you need it with you and it needs to be charged, or you need to have someone bring one out to you. Option 3 is just to do the traditional jump start of a car using jumper cables. Jumper cables are just a set of wires with clamps on the end to hook one running car to a car that is not running, the car with a dead battery. They're lightweight, fairly small, and they're fairly inexpensive. They also come typically in most emergency roadside kits that you can buy at any big box store or online. So when you get to your car and you try and start it and nothing happens, or if you get the clicking sound, it often means that the battery is dead, and your first thought is to try to jump start it. So the first step is to pop the hood on the car that's not running. There's a small lever on the driver's side under the dash. It's in different positions on different cars, but it'll have an icon with a picture of a car with a hood up on it. Pull it. Now go do the same thing on the donor car that you should have pulled up next to the car that's not starting. On this car you can see it's in a slightly different position on the far left, but it's the same idea. Small icon with a picture of the hood up, just pull it. Cars have a secondary latch at the front, so you'll have to walk around to the front and feel around to let the second latch go. Here's an example of an older Chevy truck so that I could hold the camera in my right hand. You can do it with one hand. Notice this vehicle has a spring that holds the hood up all by itself. But note that some other cars have a prop that you'll have to use to keep the hood up. Stating the obvious, but of course you have to locate the batteries as the next step. And their position can vary quite a bit depending on the make and model and the year of the car. This is a newer Ford Explorer. The battery on it is in a compartment up near the windshield on the passenger side. It's not even in the normal engine compartment area. See the icon? You have to pop the latch open in order to get access to the battery. Some cars even have the battery access in the trunk, but those are relatively few. Most are under the hood somewhere. You just have to look for them. In the old Chevy truck that I used as an example, the battery is on the front left. Notice that the battery for this particular truck has side post batteries. You can easily see the positive and negative, which is another thing you need to identify if you're going to jump start the car. This is the battery location for a Ford Fusion. This is the car that we'll use to jump start the dead car in a minute. Note that you can identify the positive and the negative. They're usually stamped on the battery, and the positive normally has red wiring or a red cover. This is the battery on the car that won't start, which is a Dodge pickup truck. You can see the positive and negative stamped on the battery, but you also can see there's a red wire that is on the positive side. Even though it's not very visible, I'm trying to show it with a green arrow. Here you can see the positive stamped very clearly. The normal sequence to hook up the cables is to put the red cable on the positive terminal of the dead battery. So remember, red on dead. Here is the red clamp. See, we'll put it on the positive terminal of the dead battery. Then attach the other end of the red cable to the car that you're going to use as the donor car. Ensure that you're putting the red cable on the positive terminal, which should have a red cover or a stamped plus on the battery there. As a side note, make sure the cables or nothing is going to get tangled up in the belts, fans, or any other moving parts on the engine. Just ensure the cable's up out of the way. Attach the black cable to the negative terminal on the battery on the donor car. And make sure it's fully seated on metal. On the car that won't start, it's usually better to put the black cable onto a grounded area, that is to say a bare screw or bolt that leads straight to the body of the car. The reason is to lessen the chances for sparks on the hood of the car that won't start. Remember, the battery in the car that's working is live, so it is possible to get sparks, and you would like to minimize that chance under the hood. So start the donor car and let it run for a few minutes to let the electricity flow from the donor car into the dead car to help charge the battery slightly. After a few minutes, try it and see if it'll start. Take the cables off in reverse order and be careful of the belts and the fans on the now running engine. I recommend to drive straight home, and definitely do not turn the car off, because if you turn it off, you may not get it started again. If it doesn't start, try to let it run a few more minutes, and you can also wiggle the clamps a little bit on the terminals to see that it has a good connection. Then try again. After a few attempts, if you still can't get it started, it's probably best at this point to call a tow truck or roadside assistance.